Where'll you be going?
Texas?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Go on, make it happen.
And now here's Steve and Michelle.
Crap, we're starting. Oh.
Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs with your host, Steve Mallett and Michelle Lewis. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, Steve.
I covered for you.
Thank you.
I'm not starting over. This
Wait
is
a minute.
it.
I was getting the camera ready.
This is the podcast.
Hello. Welcome to Mallett and Michelle.
On Dripping Springs. And our guest today is Sarah Rose from the library.
From the Dripping Springs Community Library.
Yeah, so she's going to come in here and tell us all about what's going on with the new library that the community is going to be building.
Yeah, I think she's going to have some really good information out there for us that we're not privy to know yet.
Not yet, but we're going to find out.
Yeah, we're going to.
And the show today brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team, Capital Farm Credit,
and M. Elliott Studio.
That's right.
And our unofficial sponsor, Pigpen
Pig Pen Barbecue.
Thank you.
I'm still tasting it. It's wonderful.
Oh, yeah. We did. We ate lunch first.
Yes,
and
that's
now
right.
we're
For the
doing
monologue.
This.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what'd you do this weekend?
Well, I have, it solidified my reasoning of why I live where I live. I moved my daughter into her brand new house that she closed on Friday.
Awesome.
23 years of age and bought her own house. I'm very excited
Kudos,
for her.
Kendall.
Very, very excited for her. So she moved, she was already kind of living north of Dallas, so she just moved to another little community up there. It's about 30, 45 minutes away from Dallas proper. But I hate it there.
I've never liked Dallas.
So it's by Prosper, which is very similar to Dripping Springs, right? But there is so much commercial. The views are just flat. Oh, and I was in my first tornado warning with the sirens and everything.
Video.
Yeah. It was scary.
There have been tornado warnings
But
here.
not with the sirens going off. The
Oh, yeah,
tornado
never heard
siren.
of
We
that.
don't have sirens here. Like that was a little freaky. But I remember this quote that I saw, or this saying that says, "Don't Dallas my Austin."
That's funny.
Never really understood it until this weekend. It's Dallas is financial capital of Texas. It's very materialistic. They have a lot of bougie stores.
All I think about when I think of Dallas is just miles and miles of strip malls and shopping centers, and most of it's newer and freeways everywhere. I'm sure there are people there that love it, but I don't think I could live up there.
It's just, maybe when I get older and I have grandchildren and my life's a little slower, but I love where I live. Now,
Me too.
Look, my family was from Grand Saline, from the Tyler area, Van, Texas. I mean, I'm down from the valley and I'm from way up there. But, I would go spend my summers up there with my great-grandmother.
Can't wait to get home.
No, I like where I live right now. But I also wanted to say to you and Holly, happy 4-year anniversary.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
I know that you guys went and celebrated.
We did, and if anybody does a little bit of math there, we got married 2 days before they closed us all down for 2 years to stop, or 2 weeks to stop the spread that went for 2 years.
That's right. And I think it's really funny that you took your wife, who's a vegetarian, to a steak place for anniversary dinner.
She ate wonderfully. She did. She had actually I can't remember what it was. It was some kind of vegetarian pasta thing, but she loved it. So it was fun.
I'm proud of you for stepping outside. And I joked around with you saying that you were going to get a chicken sandwich because you get a chicken sandwich.
I got a chicken pot pie.
Okay, so you just got a variation of a chicken sandwich in a pie form.
Yeah, it was good. If you've never been to Carve and you like chicken pot pie, they have a really good chicken pot pie there.
That was really risky taking the vegetarian to Carve.
Yes, that's right. Well,
good for you.
But she ate well. And she was real happy. We had a great time. And Kristen, who was our server there, man, she did an awesome job. That was one of the best experiences I've ever had in a restaurant. She did a really great job.
Well, happy anniversary. You only have 27 more years to catch up to me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, the next day after we were celebrating our wonderful anniversary, the news came out that the National Association of Realtors, NAR, settled a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit with some home sellers that is, according to the media, and part of this is probably true, is going to change the real estate industry in significant ways. And it will, not necessarily in all of the ways that the media is predicting that it will. So the gist of the lawsuit was that sellers were having to pay a fixed amount of commission to whoever brought the buyer. Mm-hmm. So they put their house on the market, and fees have always been negotiable, but the seller and the seller's agent decided what they were going to offer as an incentive for all of the buyer's agents out there that have built businesses
who work very hard.
But their business is to build relationships with people that will be buying real estate, and to incentivize those agents to engage with the seller and the seller's agent to purchase that property. They would offer a commission. And the gist of this lawsuit was that the sellers didn't have any control over that. And they felt like they had to pay 3%, even though we've never, NAR and none of us have ever said that is the price. We're all going to agree that's the price. It is the most common, but it is not fixed. And obviously, there's many stories out there about people doing listings for 2.5 or buyers for 2.5. And during COVID, we had lots of sales where the commissions was actually lower than that because there were so many people that wanted to buy it and they didn't feel like they had to pay the buyer's agents that much. But what changes the most, so this settlement, the biggest agreement is that on our MLS, we've always advertised what that fee to the other agent would be. So if it was 3%, if it was 2.5%, it was advertised. And the agents that specialized in working with buyers would say, okay, if I take my buyer here and they buy this property, I'll get 2.5%. I'll get 3%. Well, now we're not allowed to do that anymore.
So
we can't advertise what it is on the MLS.
Can you not even advertise what the seller's agent is? I mean, like when you're putting it in there.
So that's only between the seller and the seller's agent.
That's on the listing agreement.
Yeah, that's
on the listing.
So couple things are going to happen. One is a system that has worked really well, that could have maybe been tweaked a little bit, is basically being torn down with the idea that now buyers will be able to negotiate their commission and sellers won't have to always pay that commission.
But the buyers are going to go straight to the seller's agent
in some cases
and be unrepresented. And out here in this area, which we've always said, that is a bad idea because there's so many nuances.
A real estate transaction is one of the most complex financial transactions you can have in your entire life. And to go through that without anybody helping you, guiding you. And the way it worked in the past was the buyer's agent worked with the buyers. Imagine a first-time home buyer. They don't know anything. They might know they need 3.5% for the down payment if that's the kind of program
I've had two of my kids, brand new homes, and I recommended both times that they had agents, and thank goodness that they did.
Yeah. And even so, first-time home buyers, it's especially, but even people that are a little older and are maybe on their second or third purchase, you did it 10 years ago. Well, things have changed, and it was 10 years ago.
But Steve, we're dealing with a property right now that has easements and like shared
surveys
well agreements,
and shared wells,
yes. And as a buyer, the person that we're dealing with is a newer buyer's agent, right? And like, how would you not even know to ask for these things as just a regular buyer?
You wouldn't know.
No,
so you're going to be in a position where at the end of the transaction, you're either going to know that you overpaid or paid for things that aren't typical, or you're not even going to know and you're going to feel like you did okay, but the other side did all right. So there's a couple things that are coming out of this. One is when we go to sellers now, and I mostly work listings, but so I'll sit down with my sellers and there'll be all these sort of endless scenarios now about how we can incentivize somebody to bring us a buyer. used to be very formulaic. Okay, you pay me this, and I'm going to market the property to get as many people through the door as I can, and these agents will work with those buyers, and then we'll come together. I've got a willing seller and a willing buyer. I'm going to work for your needs. The buyer's agent's going to work for the buyer's needs, but at the end we're going to have an agreement. Well, now there's going to be all these programs where you offer a credit to the buyer, and that buyer can use that credit to pay their agent, or the seller can do it the old way. But I don't know exactly how this is going to play out and how we're going to advertise it.
Yeah, it's very confusing, isn't it? Very, very confusing.
It is. And the whole thing was that this lawsuit is claiming that home prices are inflated because the commissions are too high.
That is ridiculous.
It is. So what I could see happening is there will be some pressure on buyer's agent commission, because if the seller won't pay any of it, then really it's on a buyer to say in an example of a $500,000 house, well, that would have been $15,000 in commission. Well, in the past, it was paid for by the seller into the mortgage of the property, and that person could pay for that experience, that professional experience, over the course of 30 years in their mortgage. Well, now in some cases, that buyer is going to have to write a check for $15,000 at closing to pay their buyer's agent for the services that were offered.
That makes no sense to me, because I don't see where as a buyer. Okay, there's a couple of issues that I have with this. Number one, the thing that stands out to me the most is that I have been working with you for 10 years and never.
How do you do that?
Please send all prayer requests to Mallett and Michelle at gmail.com. No, I have never, ever, when you've done a comparative market analysis, a CMA, and you've sat down with a client, I have never, ever seen you base the value of a home based on your commission. Well, the house is worth $500,000, but because you're going to have to pay the commissions, we're going to raise it by 6%. Right. I've never. It doesn't work that way. But two, the people that are going to get rich that aren't knowledgeable about this at all, that aren't going to have access to CMAs, are going to be the attorneys, because now you're going to have to onesie-twosie, right? Yeah,
but then. Boy, there's a whole lot of stuff to one of the things I've got to make a big point about is everything we're talking about
could change.
It could change. None of us know what the lay of the land is going to look like. I can tell you that the prediction from the media that agents are going to go away, or a lot of us are going to get out of the business. Some agents may get out of the business. That's not going to happen. People overwhelmingly seek advice from real estate agents when they're looking to buy and sell property. It's 90+% of people use real estate agents. That's not going to change. So lenders are going to come up with programs. Listing agents like me are going to come up with programs. We're going to figure this out in the future. The business will go on in a different way, but it will go on. The one of the things that might happen is listing agents like me may actually charge a higher percentage on their commission, because they're going to end up doing some of the work that a buyer's agent would have done.
You're not saying the 7%. You're saying that if you had to work, you're not really working both sides. But if you had
normally, if it's a 6% commission, always negotiable. But if it's a 6% commission, 3 of that goes to me to pay you and $5,000 worth of marketing expense
and broker
and the office, and all that stuff. And then 3% goes to the buyer's agent for, insurance and driving people around and writing the contracts and meeting the inspectors and all those kind of things that they do. There'll be programs put in place to make this work. I don't believe the long-term benefit will be. It will not benefit people the way it's being presented. I think it just I said this to you yesterday, it makes a little bit of what used to be a very formulaic transaction now, like the Wild Wild West. Like, how are we doing it today? And people and agents and sellers and buyers will all have to kind of try and come together in a way that works for everybody. And I'm not nervous about this. I feel like it's actually an opportunity for us, but I could see where if I'm going to list the property, market it, get it all on MLS, do the seller side of the contract, but I also got to show it to people and I've got to help the buyer with inspections. Well, obviously I'm not doing that for 3% because that's a lot more work for me. So I'll charge more.
But you're always representing the seller. Your obligation.
My job is always to represent the seller. I actually had a guy call me last week and he said, well, you know, I don't have an agent, so you can represent me and you can represent the seller. And I said, no, absolutely not. The seller hired me for my expertise. I only work for the seller. And he said, well, don't tell her. And I said, no, don't you tell me anything. Everything you tell me, I am obligated to share with the seller because the seller's my client. You're just the buyer. I'll write it up for you. But I don't represent you at all. Yeah.
You know, one of the other things that you didn't touch on yet, but that I was reading, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as of 2 weeks ago, you could call up a Joe Blow realtor and you could say, hey, I want to see this house. And 9 times out of 10, whether it was right or wrong, Joe Blow would meet you at the house and show it to you. And then if you're interested, then you get a buyer agreement signed. Right. Now, apparently, according to this agreement, in order to ever even show anything, you have to have a buyer agreement rep signed.
Well, that's
Is that right?
another part of this fuzzy thing, right? So you get a buyer rep agreement, but the buyer rep agreement is going to say, I'm buying a $500,000 house. You will owe me 3%.
Yeah.
When the buyer sits down with that, they're going, well, wait a minute. What about if I fall in love with the house and the seller's not paying 3%? Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Buyer. You're going to owe me 3% because I'm going to spend a lot of time and energy.
That's very convoluted.
And my business is going to be involved in helping you complete this financial transaction. So I'm just addressing it now because I've probably been asked about this 30 times since Friday last week.
And our team, too. Our team's been getting phone
we're
calls.
We're trying to figure it out, and we will. And it's just a part of a sort of changing our business as we go. But don't worry. The big takeaway I want our listeners to know, real estate agents aren't going away. There may be some pressure, and I think that on commissions, which I think is actually short-term pressure, there are some idiots that are doing real estate that do TikTok videos and make fools of themselves. But overall, this is a very professional industry. We take our jobs very seriously and we do a good job for the sellers and the buyers, and the demand for that will not go away.
So I'm not dressing you up in any way, shape, or form.
I'm not doing that. So anyway, stay tuned for more. When I do my real estate minute in a couple of weeks, I might touch on this again because the landscape's going to be changing. But
also, I want to give
things will be okay.
I want to give a little plug. Also, for those of you who don't know, Steve writes an article for the Outlook every month, and so if you even have ideas for a subject that you would like him to write, but I really implore you to read those articles. He's really good. He closes his door and if I need to draw him out, I just put pieces of chocolate outside.
That works every time.
But yeah, he's, look, this is a plug for myself, but I've worked for this man for 10 years. He knows what his stuff. He knows what he's talking about. And there's a reason why time after time referrals come to us.
Yeah. Because I enjoy it. It's a great industry. Kind of worries me a little bit about how this is going to play out. But I know that in the end, we're business owners and we're going to figure out how to make this landscape, how we're going to be able to survive in this landscape and actually flourish.
That's right. And
speaking of landscape.
Well, and on a side note, Steve has informed me that he's not built for feet finders because his feet are really ugly. Because I did bring up the fact that he can just sell his feet. Hey, on that note, Dripping Springs City Council has approved an ordinance that will put new restrictions on landscaping in Dripping Springs with the goal of preserving trees and water. I am a little confused about this. Is this just in the Dripping Springs proper area or is this in the ETJ?
It's just in the Dripping Springs proper area.
So it's going to prohibit the removal of heritage trees or trees of specific species that are 18 inches or larger, limiting the removal of standard trees or trees of specific species between 8 and 18 inches, and encouraging drip irrigation, allowing water to drip to plant roots and lessening live grass turf, and prohibiting sprinklers that cause water flows over sidewalks, streets, and non-vegetated areas.
It's a big change.
It is a big change, and I think what everybody's complaining about water and where we're going to get water from and all of these new developments that are coming in. I think the city needs to come out because this was implemented, I think it was like March 5th, right?
Yeah.
I think the city needs to come out with a little bit further explanation of exactly what this means.
Well, it means when somebody goes in to do a subdivision or build some houses, that when they go to meet with planning, the planning department will say, here's how you got to handle your landscape.
But are they going to target like the rogue homeowner that their sprinkler system in Big Skies happens to be?
I don't think so. No, it's.
Is there an enforcement?
If you've got a lawn with a sprinkler system, you're grandfathered in. They're not going to go in and make you fill it in with gravel. But if you're going to redo like your whole front lawn, and you need to get a permit for that, they may require some of these water saving additions to the.
Do you know if they're going to
plan.
be like fines otherwise that will happen?
I don't think so, because it wouldn't be fines. It would be, you can't, if you're doing a 10 lot subdivision and you're going to build 10 homes on there, part of your plan will be your landscape plan.
So we're talking more about the big developers versus just the homeowner.
Any development going forward.
Okay, I get it.
And we'll have to have Mayor Bill in here maybe, but this would be not punitive, not like going out and saying, oh, hey, you did this, and so, we're going to penalize you. It is going forward. Here's how we see.
I get it.
Here's the vision we have for the city.
I think that's a good thing. I think that as responsible growth, we talk about that a lot, kind of like what's going on down 290 and TxDOT.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all need to be looking for the future generations of dripping springers and not just the here and now, and enjoying what we have. Because let me tell you, drive up to Dallas and then come back home and you will appreciate what you
Dripping
have.
Springs. I know. We're so lucky. I was listening to Mark Rutledge's podcast that came out this week because he's the president of the Driftwood Historical Preservation Society, talking about how pretty Driftwood is. And I remember thinking while I was listening, how lucky we are to live in such a beautiful place as we do. So
Yeah, we are, for sure.
I had a story that I'm not going to do because we're going to run out of time, but you had something you wanted to mention about Marshall Kuykendall?
Oh my goodness. So sweet Marshall. He is now doing Facebook Live or videos on all of the stories that he has been on our podcast telling. And so if you really enjoy Marshall's stories about Texas and family history and the area, go to Marshall E. Kuykendall. And
Kuykendall.
And he has a plethora of stories, and I can't wait to run into him again because he's just talking about it over and over and over again.
He is the nicest guy, and he knows more about Texas history than anybody I've ever met. He could teach a Texas history class at UT. No hesitation. He is such a great guy.
I love him. He's a great hugger too. I forgot to say also, it's the first day of spring today, and the blue bonnets and everything new and springy and everything, and there's something new that's going on in our studio. Do you know what it is?
No idea.
It's Bearded Steve.
Bearded Steve.
I know. I was thinking that earlier. I was like, crap. All I had to worry about was that goatee. And now all of a sudden I'm going to have to worry about the whole face just accidentally hitting the...
I only did it right there intentionally.
I like it. It's very rugged and I love it.
Well, I will not rub my beard on the mic, and let's take a little break and get Sarah Rose in here from the library. Proudly sponsored by...
At Capital Farm Credit, they understand that owning land is more than just a transaction. It's a legacy, a future, and a place to call your own.
For generations, Capital Farm Credit has been the trusted lending partner for land loans, farmers, ranchers, and rural dreamers just like you.
Their personalized loan solutions cater to your unique needs, making the journey to land ownership smoother than ever.
Capital Farm Credit, your land, your legacy. Visit CapitalFarmCredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender.
Interior design should be an investment in your life and home. Let M. Elliott Studio transform your space, where interior design meets excellence in Central Texas.
Beyond just selecting colors and furnishings, team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, is a trained and licensed interior designer.
With her knowledge of architectural principles, building codes, space planning, and design theory, her team will work with you to understand your needs and lifestyle.
From concept to completion, M. Elliott Studio is committed to enhancing your space with a timeless and classic style.
Ready to redefine your space?
melliottstudio.com, 512-781-0224.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
Welcome back. We are here with Sarah Rose of the Dripping Springs Community Library. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you guys for having me.
You are so
welcome to the show. How did you end up in the tiny little town of Dripping Springs?
That is a great question. Yeah. So I grew up in Austin, North Austin.
Where's that?
On the other side of the lake, of the river, all the way up in Dallas, basically. Okay, yeah. So I grew up in southern Dallas.
Oh, yes.
And slowly migrated further and further south. I graduated from St. Edward's University and met my husband, who was going to UT. And then we moved to South Austin for 12 years. And then we moved to Dripping Springs about 2.5 years ago. So we have 3 kids, 11, 9, and 7.
Oh, wow.
And
boys, girls?
So 2 boys, and then the youngest is a girl.
That was me.
They are amazing. They are so much, and they are so amazing.
They're extra.
Yes, they are extra. I like to say they're like ping pong balls. Like we can never all just, we're not a duck line. We are ping pong
Isn't it
balls.
funny how your kids, they all come from the same place, same family, but they're so different.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
They are so different.
The ones that are in a duck line, they're all medicated. That's the family that's medicated.
They must be.
Benadryl and scotch.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Scotch,
That's how Steve was raised, on Benadryl and scotch.
Slept well.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. But yeah, we when during COVID, the kids had been pulled out of school, and we were just in a time of transition, and we always wanted to have more property. And I mean, I grew up with Dripping Springs in my backyard. Mm-hmm. And so, we started looking around and kind of found what we hope to be our forever home in Sunset Canyon. And we love it. We love being out here. And
How'd you migrate to the library?
So
Did you get a job at the library first? Or okay.
I did not. So before I did fundraising consulting for 12 years, and I did fundraising consulting for religious organizations all across the United States, and I loved it. I am a weird unicorn. I love fundraising. I love what fundraising can bring to the community, and I was not always like that. I shouldn't say nobody, right? But I have yet to meet anybody who goes to school or aspires to be a fundraiser. It's like not a thing. Everybody falls into it. Yeah, most people shy away from it. And I kind of fell into it myself after college. I was doing marketing for a software company, and I didn't really enjoy it. And I grew up with the example of my mom working for a church, and I wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. That was something that I kept coming back to. And my mom had worked in communications, and she said, I had a communications degree.
That was going to ask you what your degree was.
I had a communications degree, and she said, in the nonprofit world, communications looks like doing public relations or doing fundraising. And so you should really discern which track you want to go. And she said, I have a friend who does fundraising, and you should meet with him. His name's Peter DeCaratry. And so I met with this guy, Peter. He's this big, gregarious guy, super tall, and he said, I met with him, and at the end of this lunch meeting, he offered me a job. to join his team as fundraising consultants. And I was like, I have no fundraising experience. I don't, he's like, well, we'll teach you as you go.
You're like, I sold wrapping paper in high school.
Which is so, though, like the spirit of fundraising. Like, we will figure it out while we go, but we got to go, like you got to start somewhere and go. And so, I mean, it was baptism by fire. And, I started by shadowing a handful of consultants. I would travel to different places and shadow them and learn about how they did their job. And then I took on clients and I enjoyed it. I think that fundraising has this reputation of, begging, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, give me something. And I think that we have feelings about it of, maybe the organization doesn't have money because they're not good enough or, they didn't plan well enough. And a lot of times that's not actually the case. But we make it worse for ourselves by layering, those feelings of shame and incompetency.
I think it's a transparency issue. I think now there's so much public mistrust out there.
Yes.
That people just kind of want to know if they're giving to an organization exactly where it's going.
Yeah. That is definitely a thing. And so I think as fundraisers, when we approach it that way of, let's be transparent and let's be authentic. Like those are my two big words in fundraising, two values that I have found. If I stick to this in my fundraising, being transparent and being authentic, the rest will take care of itself.
And what you're working on now at the library is so much more. It's so much easier to be transparent in that than it is for a large organization that's raising millions of dollars that are being spent who knows where.
Oh, yeah. If
the budget to build the library is X and you're raising X, it's pretty transparent.
It is. It's pretty straightforward. And especially in a small, quote unquote, small community in Dripping Springs, the value that the library brings is very transparent as well.
Well, the library is more than just about books.
Yes.
Right?
I'm like, that's a great transition. So our campaign name is Beyond Books, Building Community. And we see this new building that we are striving to build as more than just a repository for books. We really see it as a space to bring our community together. So I share a lot. The mission of the library is to promote lifelong learning. Sorry.
It's okay.
Here, we'll all do it so you won't feel bad.
Let me make a note of that. Go ahead.
Our mission is to promote lifelong learning, and we know that we learn mainly two different ways. One, through independent study, right? And that's where the library provides books and digital resources for you to study independently and the space to study independently. But then another really big way that we learn is through collaborative learning. So what we're doing right now, having conversations with people where I share what I know and you share what you know. And so this new library is a space for collaborative learning, as well as a space to access resources for independent study. And something we heard from the community is we need more space to do collaborative learning. We need more space to bring our community together in public space to do those things.
That's a big thing,
yeah. It is. It's something that's lacking. We see that all the time in Dripping Springs. If you got 50 people that want to get together or 25 people that want to get together to do something, it's hard to find a place to do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's private spaces to do it, right? And those businesses do a great job, right, providing that space. But there is value in providing public space where you don't have to bring anything to be in that space, right? Like you don't have to contribute anything to utilize that space.
So what kind of events are happening at the library now on a regular basis?
Well, right now we've got the solar eclipse coming around. So we've got all sorts of eclipse events. We've got Kristen Curry coming from KXAN in, I think, 2 weeks here.
Okay.
But we do all sorts of events, and we really listen to the community. We pride ourselves in listening to the community on what kind of events they want to see happen and then providing those. So a lot of our events are driven driven by what the community wants to learn about, wants to participate in. But those events look like book clubs, having presenters come to speak about different topics. We do some art groups like watercolors. We have music performances. We have all sorts of things for kids. I mean, I'm seeing our little carousel on the TV, which is reminding me of all the things like we do Legos with the kids, arts and crafts, story times. We also do, like Mahjong and other board game activities for adults.
Mahjong.
Do they have Rummy Cube? That's my favorite one.
Rummy Cube is my favorite
Is
too.
it? I love Rummy Cube.
I grew up playing Rummy Cube.
That's
and
a great game.
It kind of took a back seat in my life.
Oh, you got to bring it back.
I will admit it. It took a back seat.
Gotta
But
bring it
then
back, Sarah.
I went on a cruise with one of my girlfriends last year, and her family is all about Rummy Cube.
Yeah.
So much so that they brought their little travel Rummy Cube.
Oh, yeah.
And we played it the whole weekend. So I came back home and I bought my family a Rummy Cube, and I was like, y'all,
It's great.
This is
it's
where
a great
it's at.
family time, too.
I have
And now it's a
no
thing.
idea
My-
what y'all are talking about.
Oh, you got to get Rummy
You
Cube.
gotta get Rummy Cube.
Yeah.
No idea.
I don't know how to play Mahjong, but I know how to play Rummy Cube.
I know how to play Skip-Bo. I'll kick your butt in Skip-Bo.
I played you a Skip-Bo. Yeah.
It's one of those games that like makes your brain feel good. It's
It
like,
does.
yes, I
Yeah, you
solved
really
the
got to
puzzle.
concentrate. Yeah. And when it all, especially when you got one of those plays that's like 12 moves and it
Yeah.
all works.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It makes your brain work.
It does. It feels good.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, so you mentioned the kid stuff, and you mentioned, I would imagine the average age of somebody going in to play Mahjong is not 12 years old.
No,
Yeah,
no.
so-
It's usually a little bit older. And,
Yeah.
and we see that. So we see a lot of the bookends, right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. It seems to me like a kid's 20 years old and then maybe up to like 40 or 50 years old. Are those people using the library too?
So they use it in a little bit different way, right?
Yeah.
So we see a lot of young families come in with their kids. So they're coming for the kids' activities, but they are young
Right,
adults,
right.
right? We also are super unique in our library that we're right next to the high school.
Right.
And the high school demographic is a demographic that libraries across the nation struggle to engage. And we're really lucky that naturally, by like our physical presence being right by the high school, we see high schoolers come in before school, after school. You know, they like to get their parking spot, and even if they have first period off, come hang out at the library during first period and then go back to school. So we actually see quite a number of high schoolers, which
Are
is
they
unique.
using it as a hangout, a study place, a
Both.
meetup?
Yeah.
Yes.
All of the above.
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
the above. They
Interesting.
wish we had a coffee shop, and
Is the new library
That
going
would
to
be
have
a
a coffee
great
shop?
idea.
it is. So
Yeah.
a lot of people ask me that. Are you going to have a cafe? And shocker, librarians are not fans of having food and beverages
Yeah.
in the library. So
yeah.
we compromised. And so in the outdoor space, there will be a place for 2 permanent food truck hookups. So
Okay.
we can have 2 food trucks there. And then HEB has actually sponsored that patio space outside of the food trucks. So we'll have picnic tables and whatnot.
Oh, nice.
So our high schoolers will be able to get their coffee in the
And
morning
hang out
from the
outside,
food trucks.
but don't come in the doors with your
Yep,
coffee.
don't bring it inside.
You know, you talked about resources and the high schoolers. It made me think of almost my favorite person at the high school, Karen Tiller.
Yeah.
And what kind of a good working relationship do you have with? So if the high school isn't able to provide some sort of resources, can the library do that as well?
That is the goal, right? We see ourselves as the community library being able to, fill the gaps, right, of what our schools aren't able to provide. And what's wonderful is we hired a new library director, Mindy Laird, and Mindy comes to us from Cypress Springs Elementary School in the school district. And so she has these great relationships with the school district librarians, Karen Tiller being one of those. And so we've been having conversations with the schools of what are things that you would that the library can expand upon that your hands are tied on? What are ways that we can continue to partner together? So we went and toured actually the Fab Lab at the high school
wonderful.
with Karen and her team. And it was just incredible. But we're having those conversations of, what makes sense to duplicate, right? Like students know how to use this equipment at the high school. Maybe we should have the same equipment at the library. What equipment can we, build on and take to the next level in the new library?
That's interesting because when I grew up, the library was just a place you went to check out a book. That was it. Maybe read a magazine. But now, what other kind of things are you thinking about incorporating into this new library?
Well, I think it's really goes back to that community learning. So I think the way that we look at education and learning has changed a lot. And so we see that in libraries and we see that in schools too, right? We've learned a lot about how we can educate and ourselves and others and how everybody learns differently. Right? Like we learn by accessing information through all 5 senses, not just what we see, but what we hear, right? With podcasts and audiobooks and what we touch.
And video.
And video. And, and what we touch and what we smell. And, we learn from all the information that we access, all sorts of different ways. And so this new library and this is a trend across the United States of having space to have that flexibility to learn in all those different ways.
That's a lot different than when I grew up.
I mean, I was blown away when I toured the high school. It's like, this is very different.
When Steve grew up, they had a tablet and they were like chiseling
it
I think
there was a little burning bush over there in the corner.
Bible.
Yeah. Jeez. Sarah, we took a tour of some of the high school areas, and that was my takeaway is, man, this is so... when I went to school, the teacher just stood up there, lectured for 45 minutes or whatever, and then you went on to your next class. It's not like that now. They're very hands-on.
Someone was explaining this to me the other day, and they equated... let's see if I can articulate this the right way. They were talking about, think about how we approach medicine, right? And our physical health, right? Like not everyone's body is the same way. And so you meet one-on-one with a doctor who is going to tell you, here's these really specific ways for you to better your physical health. And now we're seeing that approach in education, right? Of recognizing not everybody learns the same way. And so how do we provide spaces and resources and programming that allows everybody to learn? And the library takes that to the next step outside of our schools of even, that 0 through 5, right? Before you start school, how are ways that we can foster a love for learning, a love for reading before you even step into a formal classroom? And then when you leave the school, like our brains just feel better, right? When we're constantly learning. And the thing about our brains is it's use it or lose it. So even if you learn something in formal education, in schooling, right, K through 12th, if you do not continue to use that piece of your brain, our brains are so efficient.
Yeah. It kicks it out.
It says, I'm going to use this part of the brain for something else that's more efficient.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing that our brains can do that. But
that's why when I run into you in HEB in a year from now, I'll go, I know you from somewhere. Where to go? I know you from somewhere.
Your brain said, nope.
Yeah.
I don't need to use that.
It's true. I think that what you just said really resonates with me because I wasn't diagnosed dyslexic until I was a freshman in college. And so to hear somebody now say that everybody learns differently, it is so true. And the way I was adjusting my learning back when I was younger versus how I do it now, I realize now I'm a very visual learner. Mm-hmm. But how does that transcend now into the kids that are coming out of school? Everything is visual, everything, and short form content. So how do you get those kids actively involved back?
I think there's probably a lot of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that read very rarely unless it's, I was going to say textbook. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. They're probably reading it on their iPad. But
and there's still so much value, though, to reading. So, when we sit down and read, right, we have to slow our brains down a little bit, right? We can't, when you're listening and when you're watching something, you're processing that information pretty quickly. And so when you're reading, you really have to slow your brain down. And it's actually, in my opinion, a practice of mindfulness. And so I think there is a value in still reading, even if it's on your Kindle, right? Like I'm a Kindle reader. I'll admit it. I love my Kindle. Yeah. But I also love my physical books, I call them, my ebook trophies.
Right. Yeah. For years I have said, I just don't read anymore. And I was beating myself up about that. But I get up every morning and read news articles because that's kind of, I got to pay attention to what's happening in the world for like 45 minutes. And that's reading.
It is reading.
It's like, I lied to myself all this time saying, I just don't read anymore.
Yeah. So. I mean, even reading, it may sound silly, but even reading your text messages and your emails, we do probably read more today than people did in the past.
Agreed.
Even though it's digital. And that is still valuable.
Yeah, of course.
I went on a little trip and I consciously said, I am not going to play on my phone. I'm not going to look at my iPad, watch a movie. And I brought
So how many minutes did that last?
2. No. No. And I almost finished the entire book on the plane.
Must be a good book.
But I love it. It was an easy book, right? It was an easy read. I normally like autobiographies. I like history books and stuff like that. But
Did you get hung up on the Jane Run part, or
it was see Dick go.
Oh yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the future library.
Yeah.
So, are you employed by the? Is it the library?
Yeah. So I'm employed by the library. What's something that's really unique about our library is we are a library district and we're a 501c3. And so most libraries, public libraries in Texas are city or county, which means the city or the county is governing and paying for funding.
And is there
the
usually
library.
they collect a tax for that?
Yes. Okay. So it's usually paid through your property taxes. Okay. Our library is not paid through anyone's property taxes. And so building this new library won't affect anybody's.
It won't change that.
No, it won't change anyone's property taxes. And it's so unique. There are only 15 library districts in the state of Texas. So it's very unique. And so the way our library is funded is through sales tax revenue generated in our library district borders. And our library district borders just about mimic the school district borders, minus the sliver of the school district that's in Travis County. So by law, you have to be in one. It can only be in one county.
So does that take up, Belterra is included also with all the retail?
So anywhere that the kids are zoned for Dripping Springs ISD is part of the library district, and that's where we're receiving sales tax revenue.
Oh, nice.
And so
that's a good little chunk of change most recently.
You get it from the city of Dripping Springs, or you get it from the county?
The county.
The county.
Yeah. Okay. I like, you might not want to quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's collected by the county. It's got to be,
because there are parts in the school district area that are not in the city limits. So I was just trying to think through that. So you're employed by this 501c3, and were you employed in the beginning to help raise funds for this new library?
So this is kind of a fun story. So I was doing fundraising consulting. We moved out to Dripping Springs, and our youngest was going into kindergarten. And so I was at a place where I was like, I'm ready to work full time. I was doing consulting before, but it was very part time. And the consulting firm that I was with said, we'd love to have you full time, but you'll have to be on the road or do Zoom. And I was over Zoom, and like with 3 kids in elementary school, they're at that age where we've got soccer and football and music, all the things. And so I said, that's not going to work. I want to find a nonprofit in Dripping Springs to really sink my teeth into. And so I quit my job and said, I'm going to find something. And I was on the library website looking for things to do with the kids over Christmas break. And I saw on their calendar that they had a board meeting. So, of course, I rabbit holed and started reading about who was on the board and what was on the board agenda, things that, curious minds want to know. And I saw in there that they wanted to hire a capital campaign manager. So I just cold emailed them and said, hey, I would love to do that. That would be awesome. I feel like it was just, the universe
They were like, we got one.
Yes.
Sucker.
Yes, exactly. So that's how I ended up working at the library.
Did they interview a bunch of other people, or were they like, Sarah said she'll do it?
Yes,
They're like, they took the net and they're like, sure.
yeah. So they did talk to some other people, and but I was lucky that they chose
awesome.
me, and I've been with them for about a year now.
Okay.
And yes, from the beginning, I've been the capital campaign manager, and just
So in the beginning, when they hired you, this idea for the new library was already in place.
Yep.
And was that the impetus for starting this, for this position that you're in? Okay.
Yep.
So how's the fundraising going? What's the goals and all? Tell us, and where can people find out more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So first off, where people can find out more is by going to our website. So DSCL, which is short for Dripping Springs Community Library.org/future. And that will take you to all things about the new library. This new library, the entire project is a $35 million project. And that's
$35 million.
Yeah,
okay.
$35 million. And so that's the land, the building, the furnishing, and technology.
It's taking it from 9,500 square feet to 37,000 square feet.
So it'll be 4 times bigger than our current library.
And across from DSHS?
Yep.
Like where?
Yep. So the property is connecting to our current property.
Okay.
You'll get to it a different way. So right now to get to the library, you go down 290, turn on to Sportsplex Drive, and we're right before the high school.
Right.
For the new building, you'll go down 290, turn on a Mighty Tiger Trail, like
Which
you're going
goes
to the high school.
Yeah.
And then you'll turn right on a Benny Lane. There's Premier Family Physicians there, Cunningham Orthodontics. And if you go all the way down that road, it ends in a cul-de-sac.
corridor
Yes.
title.
Okay.
Yep, right by corridor title.
Yeah.
So it's about 5 acres that we purchased, and that property backs our current property.
Has the purchase already taken place?
Yep. So we bought the land. We've paid for it outright. We were able to do that through, again, the sales tax revenue.
Okay.
We've been really financially conservative in saving away money, knowing we need this new building.
Sure.
And so we have no debt on our current building, and we've bought the new property, and we
That's
have no
great.
debt on that. And then we've saved about $2 million, and we've raised $1 million on top of that since we got started.
So is the $35 million, the land came out of that?
Yep.
So what's remaining that you need to raise in order to build this wonderful building?
So since we're funded through sales tax revenue, we hired a company that all they do is sales tax revenue projections, which sounds like the most boring job in the world to me.
Michelle would be good at that.
I would not be very good at it. But I'm so glad there are people out there that...
I contribute to the sales tax. That's what I do.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. You do your part.
Which is a worthy job.
There you go.
Yes.
You're welcome.
So they said you can project that your sales tax revenue going to the library will double by 2033 in the next 10 years. And so based on that growth, by 2033, the library will be able to pay for almost a doubled operating budget plus a building loan. So most likely we'll take out a loan for about $25 million.
Okay.
And we'll pay that off over 40 years. And we're eligible for this USDA rural development
I saw
loan.
that, through the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, which affords us really the lowest possible interest rate in a 40-year loan term, which is incredible.
I also saw that HEB is going to match the donations up to $50,000, which is amazing. $50,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so upcoming on April 3rd is Library Giving Day. Like, shout it from the rooftops.
Yes.
April 3rd.
April 3rd. Library Giving Day.
It's a Wednesday. Library Giving Day. And on Library Giving Day, if you give to the library, HEB will match your donation dollar for dollar up to $50,000.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yes,
Gotta
it
put
is
that on our list.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then we have a handful of companies that are also unlocking more matching gifts throughout the day. So definitely check out the library's website. If you're not on our email list, join that on the library website. Follow us on DS Beyond Books on Facebook, Instagram, and you'll hear all about Library Giving Day and ways to maximize your giving. And know that when you give $1 on that day, you're really giving $2 or more.
We know a couple of organizations. Maybe we could.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
Yeah, we do for
DSC,
sure.
we'll have to have
DSC.
Yeah.
So the new building is going to be 2 stories. It's going to have an event lawn, an amphitheater. It's supposed to break ground 2025-ish?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the goal is to break ground the first quarter of 2025, and they say it's an 18-month build. So we're hopeful that we'll be moving into the new building in 2027.
That's wonderful. I also, when I was doing a little bit of reading, when the library first opened right around the first couple of years, there were 900 card holders, and now you have upwards of 12,000
we
library
have over 12,000
But
card
anybody
holders.
that lives and works in Hayes County can get a card.
Can get a card for free. That's one thing that's unique about being a library district. Since we're not tied to property taxes,
interesting.
we're able to open that up to all of Hayes County.
That makes sense.
Do you know how much late fees are
Yeah.
for Michelle?
No.
I'm like, I really should know this, and I don't.
It's
I don't know.
25 cents a day, Sarah.
Are you talking about when I come into work?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So having a library card nowadays, what does that afford you? I mean,
Yeah.
is it audio, video, you get space?
So first off, you can come to our library and go to any of our programs without having a library card.
Okay, they're not checking. You don't have like a
They don't
bodyguard
check
at the
you
front.
at the
Okay.
door. You don't have to scan your card to get in the door.
Laura Bush isn't up there at the door
All are
checking the
welcome.
Secret Service.
You
Yeah.
can come in.
Okay.
Now, if you want to walk away from the library
Yeah.
with one of our materials, then you need a library card.
Okay.
Okay.
Steve.
Yes. I can't just stick it in my back pocket and walk out.
No,
Dang it.
there's actually probably some sort of an alarm system that they have.
Yeah, probably is.
Not yet.
Do you
Maybe
know-
in the new library.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you, I don't know if you know this or not. Do you know how many people check out books now versus just get them online or listen to audiobooks?
We have those numbers, but I don't know them off the top of my head.
I can't imagine it can't even be 50-50. It's probably like the people are there still a lot of people going and getting a couple books?
There are still a lot of people who come in and like their physical books, but I would say the digital resources are checked out more than the physical resource. Like we have more digital checkouts than we do physical checkouts.
Yeah.
And that really escalated with COVID. The trend was already upwards on that, and then COVID just
Boom.
escalated it.
Yeah.
I was telling Steve a story that when we used to travel with the kids across country, we'd go to Disney or whatever we would do. We would make them pick out an audiobook, and we could go to Cracker Barrel and rent a book, an audiobook,
Yep,
and
I
then we
remember
would
this.
go to the next Cracker Barrel and drop it off. And so there would be fights about which book, but I was like, okay, no. So, Logan got the first pick, and then Tate, and then Kendall would get the second, and then we'd always end up watching Toy Story in the back, but because they would fight.
I remember that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I want to circle back to the fundraising. So you have this fundraising program going on. How much? But you have these contributors going to give, and then you have the sales tax money. How much do you have to raise for this project? And it's going to move forward either way. But how much are you looking to raise from the community?
Because the more you raise, the less you have, less of a loan that you have to get. Okay.
Yes, that's a
So
very
what's
good
the goal?
point. And the goal is $5 million, and we've raised $1 million so far. And that $5 million comes from, like I said, it's a $35 million project.
Okay.
And so by 2033, we're able to pay off that building loan and our operating budget. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that sales tax revenue to go up, we'll have a delta for the next 10 years,
That
a
makes
gap.
sense. And that's the
we're
$5 million.
Yeah. And so we're basically fundraising that gap. Yes, we could wait till 2033 to do this project, but I can tell you it will be much more expensive, and our community needed it like yesterday.
Yes.
So we don't want to wait.
Well, it's just about getting the word out and awareness.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's so important for people to understand the way our library is funded because it's so unique, and I hear around town all the time we're quote unquote getting a new library. And so the perception, right, is the city or county is building a new library, and that's great. Woohoo. Well, no, that's not happening. We get $0 from the city of Dripping Springs, and we receive about $35,000 from Hays County every year. And that's a grant application process that we compete with other nonprofits for that money. We are far from a line item from the county. And so the only way Dripping Springs is going to, quote unquote, get a new library is when our community comes together and donates to it.
Why wouldn't Dripping Springs give you the city of Dripping Springs give you some sort of grant?
They may.
I was gonna say,
there
you
is an
probably have
opportunity.
tried to open that door,
yeah. So we're pursuing that, and there is grant funds from the city that,
They probably don't want to be on the hook for it on an ongoing basis.
And it would be a lot, right, for our city because of the uniqueness with city limits and the ETJ area and our service area.
Yeah. So instead of people thinking about this in terms of we're going to get a library, how do you want them to think about that?
That's a good question.
I want them to think about how they can help build this new library. Our current library was really a barn raising to build that library. You know, the community came together, they donated different materials, they donated different services of building furniture and doing the electrical work. We can't really capture that in the same way in a 37,000 square foot building. You know, we have
Michelle
to have
help.
you know, but for everyone to think of what's a way that I can participate in this. And I mean, I'll give you an example. I got the cutest voicemail I've ever received in my life on last Friday. These two young girls, Audrey and Ruby, called me to say they had started a book sale in their neighborhood. They went through their house. They found the books that they don't want to read anymore, you know, that they've loved to death and they're done with, and some toys. And they set up a little table, you know, and this was in Belterra, and they raised $187. I know.
And they're donating it?
And they brought it. They brought it, y'all. They brought it to me yesterday. I could have happy tears. You know what I mean? They were so excited. And this is their library, you know, and as we build this new library, when they walk in, they'll be able to say, I made this happen. And that's what it's going to take.
That is really cool.
No gift is too small.
Yeah.
No help is too small. So, we want it all. So
the message is our community is pulling together to build a new library. That's what you want.
It's a community effort for sure. So I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you. Okay. I'm gonna stick my little cheaters on. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Favorite author?
Oh, that one's really, really hard. Okay.
Just pick one.
Okay. I'm going to say Barbara Kingsolver right now because I'm obsessed with her latest Demon Copperhead.
Okay.
Is that something I'd like?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
You win.
Well,
You win.
Current book you are reading.
Oh, current book I'm reading right now is by Alice McDermott. It's called Absolution, and I love it. It's been a great read so far.
You like novels?
I do.
Yeah.
I like novels.
Is microfilm still a thing?
Is microfilm still a thing? Oh, I think it is.
She doesn't even know what microfilm is.
I do know what microfilm is. I have not seen it in our library, but that doesn't mean we don't have it because I know we have stuff
for just
storage.
a second. So when I was in school, there were like news articles and stuff. If you wanted to read a news article from 1950, you went into the little microfiche and you put it in this little thing and you rolled it. And like, there's the story right there.
I remember being in the basement of libraries where they had like big boxes, basically, with the backlights.
Anybody under 40 years old, 35 years old is going, what the heck are they talking about?
I thought that when you wanted to read something from 1950, you just go to your front stoop and get the paper.
That's true.
Okay.
Go back in my archive in the box in the garage.
Okay. Go-to lunch spot in Dripping Springs.
Oh, I love Summer Revival.
It's
right by the library, and they are... Library,
awesome.
They
Good
love
food,
the library
very
too.
Friendly.
They are yummy. Okay, Dewey Decimal or the Library of Congress?
Ooh, Dewey Decimal.
Okay. What story was better as a book versus a movie?
Oh,
just offhand that you can think of.
I'm like, oh,
Or
right.
vice versa, was better told as a movie than a book.
That is okay. That is like a super hard question.
Yeah, okay.
You should have probably prepped her for that one, Michelle.
So I'm kind of on the right now. My youngest is reading Harry Potter, and
next question.
I am a Harry Potter fan, and
My next question was Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings.
Okay, Harry Potter.
Okay,
my husband would say Lord of the Rings. He is but he is indoctrinated our kids with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And so I have to do my effort with Harry Potter. And so we're reading the books. And then once we're done reading them, we watch the
movie.
Harry Potter movies. And so this has been the great discussion in our house is which is better, the Harry Potter movies or the books. And my kids are very avid that it is the books. And they are so disappointed with things that have been left out, which I just find so fascinating because when my experience watching the movies come out, I remember thinking, oh, the movies are so good. They did such a good job with it. But anyway, so.
You know what? I rode the Harry Potter ride at Universal in Florida. Oh my goodness. That was
fun?
That was like riding through the book.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
I want to go to Harry Potter World so bad.
It was Harry Potter World is really neat. Yeah, I have to say.
Nerds.
Yeah, nerds.
I very rarely get to say that to you.
I'm shocked.
Is that okay? I want to.
Oh, you got rapid fire ones too?
Well, no, I don't have a rapid fire one. In your bio you sent us, you said something about you want to change the culture of philanthropy, and it's not just for the wealthy. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been doing fundraising consulting for 12 years before it was at the library, and I really saw fundraising transform communities. And when I say that, what I saw was when the whole community came together and participated in philanthropy. They all had buy-in, and it just improved the community. And so I am a big believer that philanthropy is not just for the wealthy. And I think Dripping Springs community has a group that is capable of providing $5 million for this campaign.
Oh, yeah.
And I really, when we came up with the plan for the campaign and the strategies, we really dove into strategies to empower everybody to participate in this campaign because I think it's important. I think that everybody has a need to give of themselves. That is one of our human basic needs that allows us to be happy. And we are in such a blessed and thriving community that I think it's important to recognize that people have a need to give and to provide people an opportunity to give because we know the number one reason why people do not give isn't because they don't have something to give. The number one reason they don't give is because they've never been asked. It's true for volunteerism. It's true for donations. There has to be an invitation. And so that's why you are going to see the library everywhere and anywhere inviting you to be a part of this.
I was going to say that because $5 million in our community, as wealthy as this community is, that's only a messaging problem because the money's out there. Mm-hmm. It's just about spreading the word to enough people and letting them hear how important this is.
Yeah, and empowering them, recognizing that yes, the library needs $5 million, but that need is actually much smaller than each individual's need to give to something bigger than themselves. And I want people to know that when you give to the library, it's not just a transaction. We are partnering with you. When you give to the library, you're joining a community of lifelong learners who value learning, value access to resources, and we're going to build this building together. I mean, not physically, right?
Yeah.
But metaphorically.
Well, yeah, but you walk in the doors when that building's done, and if you've donated 100 or 500 or 500,000, you feel like you've been a part of it.
Where can you see that, though, where you can give your money into a community and you are able to see the fruits of your
to have a very tangible, and on top of that, right, like we're raising $5 million, but this is a $35 million project. Right. So talk about a bang for your buck.
No kidding. Yeah.
We're going to raise $5 million, but we're going to get a $35 million building.
Yeah. I'm the president of the Dripping Springs Running Club. And we put on the Run by the Creek, and we've raised money over the years, and we donate some to the parks of Dripping Springs, and we've donated a bunch of things, but one of the things is the parks. And I always, we'll write them a couple $1,000 check. I always feel like I wish I knew where that money went.
Yep.
If you make a donation to the library, when that building's built, you can walk up there and touch it and feel it, and go in there and look at all those great things.
And
I wouldn't do that too much. They'd probably call security. I don't suggest you doing that a lot.
But you get my point. You can see the product.
And use it, right?
Yeah.
Like you can use these spaces for your running club meetings, that you can... and like if we don't have something that you need or you want, you go on our website and make a material request. Like, let us know, because that's what we're here for, is to let you use that space and use the resources. So it really is what the community makes it to be.
Yeah,
and we're lucky to be that as a library district, right? Like that doesn't come down from the city or county. It literally comes from our community.
From the community. How cool is that?
You've given us a lot to think about, and I think that it's really important to get the word out and just let everybody be aware. And I know you said before we got on air that you were having some meetings with some larger corporations, and I hope, look, we've got a lot of big corporations here in this town, and hey, I'm putting you on notice.
Yeah.
Step up.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's plenty of money here, and this is such an important thing to do in our community. Yeah. So the people that are listening, please step up. And how can people get a hold of you, Sarah?
Yeah, so they can call me, they can email me. My cell phone number, I'm a big texter, text me. I'm like not going to shy away from it, is 512-845-1096. You can email me at Sarah, Sarah. I spell it with an H, the right way.
I like that.
Sarah.rose, like the flower, ROSE, at dscl.org. But I really suggest going to our website, dscl.org/future, and check out all the things about the campaign. And can I make one last little plug?
Yes, please.
Go right ahead.
One of the really cool, so like I was saying, it was really important to me whenever we came up with our plan for, allowing everyone to participate. So if you go on our website and go to sponsor a butterfly, you'll see it. Right there. You can sponsor a butterfly. It is a glass butterfly for as low as $30 a month. And if you donate $30 a month for the next 3 years, then you will have a glass butterfly that you can come in and design yourself, or your kids can design, or you can do multiple butterflies. And this will be a permanent art installation in the new library.
So cool.
And the reason we're doing butterflies is because they are iconic of transformation and change. And the difference between learning and accessing information is learning changes us. It changes our behavior. It changes our opinion, our perspective. When we learn something, we're able to act upon it, right? And so we know that this new library is not only going to transform and change individual lives, but we know it will change our community. And so the the butterflies are symbolic of that, of life.
$30 a month. That's a drop in the bucket. That's a lunch.
We
That's
need
a
at
lunch
least
out.
5 people that are listening to call you and do an extra large butterfly, which is $15,000, because I know there's people listening that have it, and they want to make an influence in the community. This is a great way to do it. Make an impact.
And like I said, you can pay that out over 3 years. Yeah. So the goal is to raise the money, have it all pledged by the end of this year, but the community can actualize those donations over the next 3 years.
And these are all tax deductions.
Yep, and they're all tax deductible because we're a 501c3. I mean, we'll take gifts of stock. We'll take your car. We'll take your house. You name it. We will take it.
I
love it.
I like it. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Having me.
And I would love to. I want to have you back next year. I want to hear the progress.
We do. We want to hear an update. Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This is such an important thing for our community, and I'm glad that you came in and spent a few minutes with us today telling us all about it.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ready to turn your land dreams into reality? Look no further than Capital Farm Credit.
Need a loan for your perfect piece of land? Capital Farm Credit is there for you.
Their dedicated team will tailor a loan to fit your unique needs because your dreams are their priority.
Capital Farm Credit. Your land, your legacy. Visit CapitalFarmCredit.com or Mark Rutledge at 512-892-4425.
Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better.
Capital Farm Credit, an equal credit housing lender. Elevate your living experience with M. Elliott Studio, your trusted partner in interior design, registered and licensed by the state of Texas.
You want your home to reflect your personal style and identity. Investing in a well-crafted design doesn't just beautify your home, it enriches your life.
Team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, understands the profound impact of a thoughtfully designed space. From remodeling to full design, M. Elliott Studio is the first step to unlocking your style.
Turn your aspirations into reality. Tailored to your taste and desires, M. Elliott Studio will work to create an environment that embraces your style with style.
Your space, their expertise.
MElliottStudio.com 512-781-0224.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at MallettIntegrityTeam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.